Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, I'm here in Washington at the annual Conservative Conference. There are 10,000 delegates. You can probably see some of them milling around behind me. It's an atmosphere here of high excitement because the Republican Party won the election against the expectations of many, and at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, taking the stage will be the 45th President of the United States of America, one Donald J. Trump. And, unbelievably, there's a foreigner speaking here as well, despite the tough new rules they want to bring in, and I'll be speaking here at midday, which I'm pretty excited about. More on that over the course of the next hour. But today, we had the official statistics out for immigration into the United Kingdom last year. The net figure, that's after people have come in and gone out, the net official figure shows that 273,000 extra people came into the country last year. That is a drop of 59,000 from the previous quarter, the previous year, but interestingly, from Romania and Bulgaria, the figure was up. Now, I have to apologise right now to the nation because in 2014 I said, when we opened the doors to Romania and Bulgaria, that I thought up to 50,000 people a year might come. I was, of course, condemned, laughed at, and as that European election campaign it got into swing, we even had Nick Robinson of the BBC suggesting that basically what I'd said was a fabrication. Well, I now apologise for saying that up to 50,000 people a year would come from Romania and Bulgaria. The figure for the last year is 74,000. So I was wrong. I underestimated it by nearly 50%. The point is that with Article 50 about to be triggered, perhaps in just 2.5 weeks' time, could there not be, in that 2-year negotiating period, possibly a massive flood of people that come from Romania or Bulgaria or come from a country like Greece, where the economy is in a total mess and where they need another bailout of the euro? And I'm asking the question, given that risk, given that we have an open door, is it not time for the British government to apply an emergency brake and to say to our friends in Brussels, it's no longer going to be an open door. We need to see people who've genuinely got jobs to come to. Now, to get involved in this debate, please call me on 0345 6060 973. Text me on 84850. You can tweet me at LBC using the hashtag Farage and LBC. And you can watch the show live on LBC's Facebook page from here in the conference centre in Washington. And our first caller this evening is Americo in Queen's Park. Good evening.
Hi, Mr. Farage. I would like to ask you, why are you calling for an emergency break on EU immigration now when you could have asked for that for years?
Well, yes, of course, that is absolutely right. I wish that British governments had tried with our EU partners to put an emergency brake in place, but the reality is we voted to leave, we are leaving, but the Article 50 process drags this out for a further 2 years. And I'm genuinely worried.
My question is more like, if this is something that UK could have done all these years, why do you need to do Brexit if you could have done an emergency brake in immigration for years?
Well, I think the reality would have been, prior to Brexit, that even to attempt to get an emergency brake would not have been allowed. And David Cameron wanted this to be part of his renegotiation strategy, and Angela Merkel vetoed it. So what I'm suggesting, Americo, is that we don't go to Brussels on bended knee and say, please, can we have an emergency brake? I'm suggesting we go to Brussels, and the next big summit is on the 10th of March. I'll be there. It's the day after Theresa May is going to trigger Article 50, and I suggest what we say is we are applying an emergency brake because we're worried, once that 2-year period has been triggered, that just uncontrollable numbers of people could come into our country. That is my suggestion, America. How could that possibly be seen to be unreasonable?
No. Well, what I find unreasonable is that you could have asked for this for years. Then when you had very high levels of immigration from the EU, you could have called for this before, without
America,
for leaving the EU.
I take your point, but they would never have given it to us. That, I'm afraid, is the reality. That, in the end, is why Cameron's negotiation failed, as dismally as it did, and we did, in my own view, joyously vote Brexit. So I'm suggesting we don't beg for an emergency break, we apply one. I wonder what Tim in Burskoff makes of this debate. Tim, good evening.
Hi, Nigel. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
The reason I'm calling isn't so much about the emergency break right now. It's more about obviously the net migration figures came out today. And it's just become commonplace now just to hear about the net migration figure from not just the media, even politicians of all stripes use this figure almost solely now, as opposed to the gross figures of how many come in and how many leave. And it's even, it's a bit like, I know you don't like that, neither do I. People use Europe as instead of European Union. And it's just like
Sure.
Even on Sky today, it said 273,000 people came into the country last year. They didn't. 596,000 came in, 323,000 left. And so that figure...
Tim, your point is very relevant in one regard, because in many years over the last decade, we've seen a net figure. What we haven't looked at is a lot of the people leaving have been British people leaving to retire to Spain or buy a place in Normandy. That's exactly the point I was going to make, Nigel.
We need to look at the birth rates of people coming in and leaving. If we lose 500,000 pensioners and 500,000 young couples with high birth rates come in, then not only have we lost 2 people and 2 come in, net migration 0, nothing to worry about. If you're trying to plan for primary school places or something, you tell net migration 0, then of course it's meaningless because, you can't plan on that basis, never mind future generations of just those people, so
Tim,
it doesn't make sense.
Tim, you make a very, very powerful point that net migration figures alone do not give the full picture. I thank you for that point. It's valuable. And not only is Tim right about the fact that it's younger people coming in and generally older people leaving, which means higher birth rates, etc. The other point, I think that's important, is the sheer demographic change in our country. It isn't 273,000. It is maybe 500,000 people a year. And that is literally the thing that has changed the shape of our communities, that has made so many people feel ill at ease. Your Facebook messages coming in. Seema Sud says, David Davis says, we still need immigration from the EU. So what's your problem? We don't have an open door. Check your facts, Nigel. Make and impose stronger controls straight away. Well, I'm going to just have a quick look at my passport here. It purports to be a British passport, but actually the first 2 words on it are European Union, Seema, and anybody in the European Union is free to come to this country for at least the next 2 years. David Davis yesterday suggested it could be even longer, and we could argue, Seema, about the rights and wrongs economically of huge numbers of unskilled people coming into Britain from the European Union. The point I made last night was actually what we voted for was for fewer people to come, and I'm now worried, looking at those figures, particularly from Romania and Bulgaria, that this thing looks to me to be out of control. Justin Hughes on Facebook says, Nigel, you mentioned years ago that Romania and Bulgaria would come in record numbers. And once again, you're right. People really need to start listening to you. Well, thank you. Cheryl Parker says, an emergency break was always an option. Government didn't use it. Well, Cheryl, we did need the agreement of our EU partners. That really is the point. I wonder what Mark in Cambridge. Are you happy, Mark, that 74,000 people came in from Romania and Bulgaria? Do you think it's a good thing?
I don't think it's necessarily a good thing, but I do think it's important that as Britain, we act, we make sure that we follow the law at all times. In other words, if they're allowed to come in at the moment, then they should be allowed to come in. I think it's very, very difficult to know how to control the numbers coming in the near future. For example, do we place people who have come in after the referendum was taken in questionable circumstances? In other words, we go through the Brexit process, do we then retrospectively look back and say, well, who has come in since the referendum vote? Should they be allowed to stay? Or you could go,
Mark,
we'll have a fixed. Yeah.
Mark, I don't believe a civilized country ever does this retrospectively, which is why nobody in the Leave campaign at any point said that EU citizens that come to this country legally, albeit I thought there were too many, but had come to this country legally, nobody ever suggested that their rights to stay would be altered by the referendum result. And that does apply to the last 7 or 8 months. What I'm really suggesting is that the government actually says something, that the government says, right, from next month, this is going to be different. From next month, we are going to say we're going to restrict the number of people that come. And then I think we're playing fair and being open with people. Would that sound reasonable?
I'm totally in agreement with you. You should be fair. So people should know what their situation is. In other words, there should be no doubt. If they come in after a certain date, their rights will have changed, etc., etc. I think it's difficult to put a definite date. So we go through the Brexit process, then are the government going to go, well, after this date, things are going to change? Because as you know, give a date, then it could encourage lots of people to come in.
Yeah, no, I get that.
It's very, very difficult to manage.
It is difficult,
fairly.
Mark. It is difficult. Mark, all I want to see is some resolve. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively here on LBC at a Conservative conference in Washington. It is 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Prison governors will be responsible for getting inmates off drugs and into work under a bill to be published today. It's called one of the biggest shake-ups in prisons for decades.
Glyn Travis is Assistant Secretary for the Prison Officers Association.
Mobile phones, drugs and everything else are coming in by the use of technology, drones being thrown over prison perimeters.
Prison officers?
Yes, staff, and I don't mean prison officers, staff who work in prisons are being corrupted because the pay is poor when people know we're being tempted by corruption.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, making you welcome at over 40 hotels in Europe.
Do you have a pension? Maybe you've got more than one. How do you know if they're in the right pension funds, making as much money as possible for your retirement? Answer is, you probably don't. At The Pension Works, our fully qualified independent financial advisors could add instant value to your retirement fund. Simply text the word yes to 83222 for your free Pension Works health check. That's yes to 83222 today. Your pensions working harder with The Pension Works.
Travel Pack have the right flight at the right price. In fact, we'll price match most worldwide flights if you find one cheaper elsewhere at the time of booking. So, if you need to book a flight, remember the Travel Pack price match. Call Travel Pack on 0208 903 9999. You won't find a better price for your flight. Travel Pack 0208 903 9999. ATOL protected. Excludes low-cost operators. Competitors must be ATOL licensed. Conditions apply.
Let's not go home yet, Wilbur. There's a new film out with penguins in. Change of plans. You can control your heating from your phone wherever you are with Hive Active Heating. It's just £9 a month exclusive to British Gas customers, and you won't pay anything up front. You'll never need to heat an empty home or come back to a cold one again. Shh, Wilbur, the film's starting. Control your heating from your phone for just £9 a month. Search British Gas Hive. Conditions, exclusions and cancellation charges apply.
This is a live update for UK businesses. Right now, you can find essential information and services about selling overseas through the government's website for exporters. Find the right information and help to grow your business. Visit great.gov.uk.
At Oak Furnitureland, everyone knows our furniture is 100% real hardwood.
And it's also 50% off.
But most importantly, it's 100% real hardwood.
Yes, but don't forget it's also 50% off.
Make sure you don't miss Oak Furnitureland's biggest ever winter sale, where everything's 100% real hardwood with up to 50% off. Our biggest ever winter sale ends Sunday. Plus, this weekend only, get 2 free gifts worth up to £600 when you spend £1,500.
Whether your business is carpentry, catering, or dog grooming,
In an ever-changing economy, HSBC could help your business grow. Last year, we approved 91% of business lending for startups and businesses switching to us. For an indication of loan eligibility in just 2 minutes, search HSBC Business Lending.
Approval rate based on lending approvals up to £30,000 in 2016. Subject to credit status. Results of business lending eligibility check are indicative only. T's and C's apply. See website.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Live from Washington. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Yes, Nigel Farage is in Washington, and I'm Clive Bull here in London, and this is interesting. The reason Nigel is there is he's at the CPAC conference in Washington, the Conservative Political Action Conference, and he's been broadcasting his programme live from that conference. If you were watching on Facebook, you could see him there with the delegates all wandering around behind him. However, in the last couple of minutes, and Nigel should be back with us, but in the last couple of minutes, a security sweep has taken place. The American Secret Service have been in there and basically cleared the entire hall.